The UK electricity market is broken, and fixing it could mean the biggest reform this century. Right now, wholesale electricity prices across the country are still tied to the price of gas. Even as wind and solar power grow, that cheap, clean energy isn't necessarily showing up in our bills due to the way the system price is cleared and the grid network constraints, as explained in my previous video. In the scheduling phase, a wind farm in Scotland can theoretically supply the demand required in the south. However, wind farms often produce more power than the grid can handle, therefore they are paid to switch off. At the same time, gas plants in England need to be paid to switch on. So the system ends up paying three times: once in the scheduling phase to the wind plants, once during the actual day to curtail the wind power, and once to ramp up the fossil fuel power. This isn't a one-off cost. It happens daily, and it's only getting more expensive. Suppose a 50 megawatt wind farm get paid £100 per megawatt hour to turn off and avoid congesting the grid. This equates to £5,000 per hour. If it's a windy day and the grid gets congested for 6 hours, the wind farm gets paid £5,000 times 6 equals £30,000 this day. Now, there's a solution on the table, and it's dividing the entire energy industry. It's called zonal pricing, and if implemented, it would be the most dramatic change to Britain's electricity market this century. Zonal pricing is tearing the industry in two. On one side are retailers like Octopus Energy, the system operator NESO, and the regulator Ofgem, all calling for a faster, more flexible system. On the other side are major industry bodies and unions, including Renewable UK and Solar UK, warning of chaos. The idea is simple: divide the country into zones based on where the grid gets congested, like the bottleneck between Scotland and England. Then let each zone have its own wholesale electricity price based on local supply and demand. Our electricity bill is made up of two main components: the wholesale cost and the system cost. In a system like this, Scotland, with its massive wind output and relatively low energy use, would have lower wholesale prices. England, with its high demand and limited renewable space, would pay more. Supporters say this makes perfect sense. It reflects the real value of electricity in different areas. It would finally send the right locational signals to investors. Generators will locate to areas where electricity is actually needed, and demand like data centers can locate to areas of low electricity price. The system costs on consumer bills will go down, as we no longer have to pay three times to keep the lights on. The differences between zones would help fund grid upgrades and reduce the very bottlenecks causing these issues in the first place. The expected benefits are huge: smarter investment, lower system costs, fewer wasted payments, and a grid that actually reflects how energy moves in the real world. But not everyone agrees. Opponents say zonal pricing would make it harder to plan projects, that it would push away investors, raise capital costs, and slow the rollout of renewables. They argue that it fundamentally contradicts the UK's CP30 Energy Action Plan, which focuses on building as much clean power as possible. There's also a deeper concern. This debate over prices is a distraction from the real problem: a lack of investment in the grid itself and a market still propped up by fossil fuel. Zonal pricing could be the biggest shakeup in decades, but whether it fixes the system or fractures it is still in huge debate.